Now let me tell you something. In this video we're gonna look at the top 5 wrestling games that this guy has. It's the cream of the crop, and it's about to run wild on you. First up we have Backyard Wrestling 2 on the original Xbox.
This is a follow-up to Backyard Wrestling, Don't Try This at Home, and this game boasts to be more hardcore than ever, with improved wrestling over the original game, more moves to utilize in battle, and more customization, particularly when it comes to creating your own wrestler to use in the game. Backyard Wrestling 2, There Goes the Neighborhood screams babes and brawls as content. The game is fronted by the aptly named Insane Clown Posse, and features a roster including Formula, World Championship Wrestling, Extreme Championship Wrestling, and Total Nonstop Action wrestlers, alongside independent wrestlers, musicians, and adult film stars. There's no wrestling ring to contain the action in this fighting game, and the bulk of the action takes place in a variety of extreme environments using unbelievably violent weaponry to explode, maim, or leave your opposition in a pool of blood. Whatever it takes to keep them down for the count. This game also has a ton of licensed music to rock out to whilst playing, so you can do some head banging as you do some head banging. That's Backyard Wrestling 2, There Goes the Neighborhood on the original Xbox.
Next up we have Rumble Roses on the PlayStation 2.
Rumble Roses is an awesome wrestling game and a total hidden gem. The game describes itself as girl-on-girl wrestling action, and it has an all-ladies roster lineup and uses the same game engine as a highly acclaimed WWE SmackDown Here Comes the Pain game. With that existing and brilliant gameplay from WWE SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, Rumble Roses adds some ridiculous and over-the-top characters and storylines akin to the sort of thing you'd see in a Lucha Underground show. Whilst the game is a bit short on features which include what it calls an intimate story mode, regular and messy mud wrestling matches, and interactive dressing room modes, I think it makes up for it with its ludicrously silly but entertaining story mode. The game contains some crazily unpredictable antics for each good and bad character throughout the entertaining story, and you'll always want to know what's next. This game did get a follow-up called Rumble Roses XX on the Xbox 360, which did add some missing features from this PS2 game, like tag team matches, but unfortunately Rumble Roses XX skipped adding a story mode, and I think Rumble Roses' story is its strongest appeal. So if you like what you see with this game, I suggest you give it a go for a bit of rough and tumble. That's Rumble Roses on the PlayStation 2.
And next up we have TNA Impact Total Nonstop Action on the Xbox 360.
Total Nonstop Action Wrestling was at the height of its popularity at the time this game was released. Its show titled Impact featured some of the best wrestlers in the world. AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, Gail Kim, Sting, and Samoa Joe, to name just a few. This game also introduced the persona Suicide as your created character's alter ego for the story mode, which is a highlight to this game. Suicide would move over to television, later being renamed Manic, and was portrayed by wrestlers such as Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. TNA would get several renames itself, since its former association with the National Wrestling Alliance as NWA TNA, becoming TNA later, then renaming to Impact Wrestling. It would associate with Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling briefly, before becoming Impact Wrestling yet again after that. And then finally it would rename back to TNA again, at least at the time of this video. Anyway, this is a great game with a fantastic roster that highlights a high point for content and roster for TNA and showcases a lot of what makes TNA interesting. This game showcases the six-sided ring, and with that, some unique match types and experiences that can be played through using this environment. It's all the crushing action, intensity, antics, energy, and drama from TNA come smashing onto your console. That's TNA Impact total non-stop action wrestling on the Xbox 360.
And next up we have WWE Day of Reckoning 2 on the GameCube.
The Nintendo wrestling games were highly acclaimed, from No Mercy and WrestleMania on the N64 to Day of Reckoning on the GameCube. The Nintendo wrestling games kept an arcade action pace of gameplay, whereas wrestling games on other systems were slowing down to present a more realistic wrestling simulation style of play. There's nothing slow about Day of Reckoning, however. The action is fast-paced, and you can have multiple players in the same ring for great multiplayer action. The game engine is also fantastic, with fun physics to play around in. You can easily break up your opponent's pins and moves, and weapons like tables aren't awkward to use like they are in other wrestling games. For example, in some other games, when using a table, it won't break unless it's used in a particular way. But in Day of Reckoning, you are free to throw your opponent from anywhere, and the table is going to break. I'm pretty sure the Dudley Boys would approve. Day of Reckoning has all the great gameplay of the Nintendo wrestling games that came before it, but with improved graphics, new features, and an expanded roster. It's got a fun story mode and an in-depth create a wrestler mode as well. I really think that this game doesn't get the respect it deserves, but regardless of it being overshadowed by other games, there's no reason to pass this game by. If you give Day of Reckoning 2 a chance, or better yet, give the game a go in a multiplayer melee, you certainly won't regret it. That's WWE Day of Reckoning 2 on the GameCube.
And finally we have WWE SmackDown. Here Comes the Pain on the PlayStation 2.
Here Comes the Pain has universal acclaim as one of the best wrestling games of all time, and it's easily one of my personal favourites. The gameplay was so good that this game's engine was used for Rumble Roses, which is another game I really like for the gameplay. I've always enjoyed the SmackDown series of games, from Know Your Role to Shut Your Mouth and beyond, and although there were other games in the SmackDown series after Here Comes the Pain, for me, this game had a pinnacle of gameplay and features that makes it stand out in my memory, and stands the test of time. This game features excellent creation options for making your own character, and has an engaging story for you to play out. There's also a ton of match types to battle through, which are also fantastic fun to play in multiplayer as well. Wrestling games after this would slow pace and steer more towards wrestling simulation, and whilst I appreciate the implementation of new mechanics to spice up gameplay, I personally prefer the more arcade action style of fast-paced gameplay that games like this can offer. If you've never played Here Comes the Pain, I suggest you pick it up for a solo or multiplayer experience that won't disappoint. And there you have it. Those were my top 5 wrestling games. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like or a comment to let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content. And if you liked the video, you can also support me through Patreon or YouTube channel membership. Thank you for watching. I've been MVL, and I will catch you next time.